that's a man and his dog. They've stopped. Now you'll see the officer come in from the right side. And the officer's speaking to him. Now listen to, keep listening. I don't know if you can understand what was being said between two parties, the police officer and the walking dog. Anyone upstairs? You guys have better audio up there. Are you hearing what exactly is being said? Because that would be of interest to me. Okay, and there's the officer right there moving back toward. I mean, the bravery that was displayed in downtown Nashville this morning is nothing short of incredible to me. It gives me the chills to see the way these folks were operating in such a dangerous situation. And after the bomb blows up, he goes back toward the blast.
Don Cochran for the Middle District of Tennessee. He will be followed by Mickey, that's M-I-C-K-E-Y French, Special Agent in charge of the ATF for this area. He will be followed by Matt Foster, the Special Agent in charge of the Nashville FBI office. And then Nashville Fire Department Chief Director William Swan will speak to some operations that are taking place on 2nd Avenue. Chief John Drake.
Thank you, Don. Good afternoon. This morning, around 5:30 a.m., officers responded to a call for shots fired in the downtown area, specifically 2nd and near Commerce. As officers responded, they encountered an RV that had a recording saying that a potential bomb would detonate within 15 minutes. Officers, upon hearing that, decided to evacuate the buildings nearby. So they began knocking on doors, making announcements, having emergency communications, communicate with everyone to get people safe. Shortly after that, the RV exploded. We had one officer that was knocked to the ground. Another officer is fine. Currently, what we have going on now is we have K9 dogs. All of them are out, partnering with Tennessee Highway Patrol, our federal partners, and we're sweeping the downtown area just as a precaution to make sure that everyone is safe and that any service that needed, we can provide that. And so with that said, we don't feel there's any concern in the downtown area of anything else right now, but we are doing it as a precaution just to search with our bomb dogs. At this time, I'll turn it over to Attorney Don Cochran.
Good afternoon and Merry Christmas. Unfortunately, this is not the way any of us wanted to spend our Christmas morning, I know. But I'm Don Cochran. I'm the U.S. Attorney here in Nashville, Tennessee. This morning I briefed the Acting Attorney General, Jeff Rosen, on the situation here in Nashville, and he has told me to tell the police chief in Nashville that we are devoting the entire resources of the Department of Justice to help in their investigation. FBI and ATF are taking the lead in this investigation, and I want to turn the stage over first to Assistant Special Agent in Charge Matt Foster of the FBI, and then Special Agent in Charge Mickey French of the ATF to explain some of the resources that the federal government is going to bring to bear on this situation. Matt.
Thank you, Don. The FBI stands with the city of Nashville today in this very tragic Christmas Day event. This is our city too. We live here, we work here, and we're putting everything we have into finding who was responsible for what's happened here today. As part of doing that, there are investigative leads to be pursued. There's also technical work that needs to happen, and we're standing with Metro Nashville Police Department and our federal partners and our state partners to bring every resource we can possibly bring to bear to find out what happened here today and to bring those responsible to justice. The investigative leads, I'm sure you understand, is not something that we can talk about. As we continue to pursue every tip, I would ask the public to go to www.fbi.gov/Nashville. It's www.fbi.gov/Nashville, where an online tip submission process has been set up. Please tell us what you know. We need your leads, we need your help. You can also call 1-800-CALL-FBI. Call in tip information. If you know anything about what has happened here today, we'd appreciate your help. On the technical side, our focus will be on bringing the technical experts of the FBI from across the country, including the FBI laboratory, our hazardous devices school, and our experts from evidence response teams nationwide into Nashville to help process this massive crime scene, along with the ATF, Metro Nashville PD, and the many other partners who were part of this effort that will continue. We will find out what happened here. That's all.
Good afternoon. My name is Mickey French. I'm the Special Agent in charge for the ATF Nashville Field Division. ATF is continuing to be a critical partner with the Metro Nashville Police Department as well as our federal counterparts. ATF responded this morning with several groups and personnel from the Nashville Field Division. We've also activated our national response team. That particular team is made up of specialists as well, certified explosive specialists, chemists, engineers, as well as evidence recovery, interview teams, and so forth. We'll be coordinating that with Metro Nashville Police Department as well as the FBI, and we'll put together a team that is going to collectively work this investigation to the fullest. Our main priority is obviously to keep our Nashville citizens safe and secure, and we'll work jointly with everybody here to do that. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm going to give you just a quick update. I know Don earlier had mentioned as far as the fire department's role at EMS, we did transport 3 individuals with minor injuries, but right now what we're doing is with our structural engineers, along with our urban search and rescue, hazmat teams, we're going into the buildings, making sure, number one, that the building is sound and ensuring that there are no other victims or anyone that are there. So a lot of moving parts. Again, my hat goes off to all the teams working together as one unit, and we'll continue to work on until the job is done. So thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's the update as we know it at present. If there is another briefing for this afternoon, we'll let you know. But you pretty much know what we know at this juncture as far as our community is concerned. Again, to reiterate, we know of no other imminent danger to the city at this point. The bomb dogs going through the downtown area now are doing that as a precaution. Okay? I can't hear you, Harriet.
Do we have a number yet, maybe an estimate of how many buildings have been damaged in this incident?
I'll talk with Joseph Pleasant from OEM. I can tell you that several of the buildings on 2nd Avenue have structural damage. Several of them have been damaged, some more than others. But we'll get that for you. I know that, as Chief Swan said, the fire department's looking at those structural issues now to determine any more potential impact.
Bottom line, Don, at this point, do you know the target? Do you know the purpose of why this happened?
As the FBI said, we will find that out. There are a number of people working right now on Christmas Day running leads throughout the city. From our police department, the FBI, ATF, answers will be forthcoming. We can't discuss those with you now or exactly what we're looking at, but answers I'm sure will be forthcoming.
Don, was there a body found?
I have no information about any body being found. We do not know whether anyone was in the RV when it exploded. We do not know whether anyone was in the RV when it exploded. So I can't tell you at this point whether there's a potential for a fatality in that scenario.
The megaphone that was warning people to leave, do we know if that was coming from the truck? Was it coming from somewhere else? Do we know?
It is believed it was coming from the RV.
Coming from the
Yes.
Or was it someone saying?
There were announcements coming from the RV, and that's the extent of what we can say at this point.
Is there any surveillance footage that police are investigating right now?
There are cameras throughout this downtown area. Yes, we have been reviewing downtown cameras, and that is all part of the totality of the investigation.
Don, you mentioned some people may have been taken to Central Precinct, whether they were just witnesses to give a statement, to share what they saw. Has anything come to fruition from that that you can share?
Just providing more pieces to the puzzle, more information. As Chief Drake said, we had a number of officers, several officers on 2nd Avenue who were working to protect the public when the explosion occurred. As he said, one of those officers was knocked off his feet. We have some counselors with our officers, our behavioral health folks are with those officers, ensuring that they're okay. I mean, they went through a very traumatic experience themselves.
Can you speak to just, I mean, really, it's amazing how these officers and first responders run into the face of danger. They knew, according to that RV, that there was some kind of threat, and they continued to take their time to get people out.
Well, they went to the residential areas on 2nd Avenue and did their best to get people to safety. Obviously, they heard the announcements coming from this vehicle. They took them seriously and were working to seal the streets, to protect folks, and we think it worked. We think lives were saved by those officers doing just that. All right, thanks very much, folks.
Don, can we ask one final question? Just really quickly about the location. It's close to AT&T. There's a lot of talk about AT&T, especially with the servers that we're building. Is there any thought right now that it was related to targeting AT&T?
The vehicle explosion occurred outside 166 2nd, the AT&T building. We do not know if that was a coincidence or whether that was the intention. Okay?
On the back side, 1st Avenue, not to go near 2nd Avenue. They didn't tell us what it was. Our car was parked over on the other side of the gulch, and we went over and got our car and was sitting in our car not knowing what to do. And at that point, we had been sitting in the car for about 10 minutes, and then our whole car shook, and it felt like a bomb went off, and we looked over towards 2nd Avenue from the gulch, and like we saw like flames and like sparks, and like you could see not only the smoke, but you could see like the explosion sparks fly up into the air, probably 300 feet into the air.
And yes, you should be able
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, needless to say, terrifying.
Tariff blockaded his front door to the apartment, because it wasn't just like it was a round of shots and it was done. It was a round, and then minutes go by, another round, and you're like, did we really just hear that? And then 15 minutes later, and another round again. And at that point, your mind is now thinking, and I'm thinking the shots are in the building. I don't know if they were or not. I don't know. But all I know is that at that moment, I thought that they were. And I was like, I'm going to have to fight my way, jump. I didn't know what I was going to do. Literally.
It's such a bit like Broadway, I mean, busy area typically. I mean, not necessarily at this time of day on Christmas, but I mean, this is a popular area in Nashville.
Yeah, well, what I was really concerned about was the fact that it is a really, really busy area, but also it was an hour that you shouldn't be hearing stuff like that. I mean, 5 o'clock a.m. is kind of what you would call kind of downtime. So I was really concerned. I still don't know what's going on. Don't know when I'm going to get back in my house. Merry Christmas.
Did you talk to any of your neighbors or see any of them coming out? What were they saying?
They were all coming out. Everybody was bewildered. Nobody knew what was going on. There's a hostel youth hotel right next to the building that we live in. And there was a woman that came out of that one that said the cops had said something about a bomb. She said that when we were still at the building. This was 30 minutes before that explosion. She came out and she said something about a bomb. The police had told her a bomb. Yeah. So Evidently, there was some sort of knowledge about that bomb because one of my neighbors mentioned it.
I haven't been up there.
Well, thank you so much for coming through.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry this happened.
Hey, is that the first time this interview's aired?
We did not air that part of the interview earlier as we were waiting to confirm.
That is chilling. That firsthand account of what was going on 2nd Avenue, and this was not a bang event, excuse the verbiage there, but this is something that was happening over a period of time where it sounded like he spoke of 3 different rounds of extensive gunfire going on minutes apart from one another as separate acts. And then at the end, perhaps the most stunning thing is that 30 minutes ahead of time, they knew it was a bomb. So it's going to be these witness accounts for us and also for investigators that kind of paint the picture of this chaos.
On this Christmas morning, as we continue our developing news, breaking news coverage of a huge explosion. Nick Barris in the 5 Alert Center. Nick, I understand you have spoken with a witness. What have you learned?
Yeah, Roy, this is getting to the heart of the question of what was it exactly that led law enforcement to believe that this RV on 2nd Avenue was suspicious? What drew them to that location and why? And it's really a critical question being asked right now, and I think we have some answers to that question. I talked about it earlier in one of my live hits, and now we have one of the witnesses, a resident who lives right down there, joining us on the phone right now to talk about what it was she saw. And this, folks, is very interesting. Let me make sure we've got her on the line. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. If you would, real quickly, could you please give us an idea of where you live, proximity to this RV, and then we'll get into what happened this morning.
Okay, I live at 166 2nd Avenue North. That's the building where the melting pot is located and Rodizio. And the RV was parked right outside of our window. We're on the 3rd floor, and the RV was directly across the street from our apartment.
Okay, so now let's go to what you told me and what I know authorities are looking into as well. It was around 5 or 5:30 this morning that you were awakened, and walk me through it, to the sound of gunshots initially?
Exactly. Between 5 and 5:30 a.m., we heard very loud gunshots, repetitive, like 5 to 6 shots. I'm not sure, but very loud, and that woke us up. But we only heard it for a minute, and we just thought maybe, you don't know. You live downtown, you hear things. We've been living there for 15 years. Well, about 5 minutes later, we heard it again. And then I realized, and it was in the same place right outside of our window, basically on the street. So I called 911 for the first time at 5:32 this morning was my 911 call to say that I had heard gunshots. Well, then I went downstairs. We have a 2-level apartment, and I looked out the shades of my window, which I was a little bit afraid to raise because of the gunshots were so close. And I saw an RV directly out front across the street. And I began to hear a broadcast from, like a recording coming from the RV. And it was saying, this vehicle has a bomb. If you can hear this message, you need to evacuate. And all that was happening, and it was still, that went on for about 30 minutes. But then the RV message changed and said you have 15 minutes to evacuate. And then we heard 14 minutes. Well, I went downstairs and I looked out on the sidewalk, and I saw that police were at both ends. By the way, I did see a police officer earlier between 5:30 and 6 a.m. walk around the RV.
Okay,
and 911 told me that police had responded.
So they had responded, and we'll take it from there then. So what you're saying you heard at some point, and maybe this was something law enforcement had already been alerted to, was some kind of an announcement coming from the RV. I think you mentioned to me, did you not, it sounded recorded, a male voice, but you never saw any individual inside the RV.
No, I couldn't see inside the RV. It was parked facing in an opposite direction, so I never saw the windshield. And, I was listening to something that I think you guys just played on the news, and now I'm not as positive it was a male voice, but it was definitely a recorded voice.
A recorded voice, okay.
Consistent, saying, evacuate this area. This vehicle is a bomb. It has a bomb. And then it started the countdown, and the last count we heard was 8 minutes, and we were in our cars driving across the river. But then it didn't go off until sometime after that.
Okay, so do you think you made it across, you went over to Nissan Stadium, maybe in the parking area there, the countdown?
And watched our building, and we were looking right at our building, and we knew, we couldn't hear the countdown at that point, but we knew from the time that we left, 20 minutes had passed, and there hadn't been an explosion, so we started driving back We came back across KVB Bridge, and we're going to turn down 2nd Avenue. In fact, we made it almost down. We were on 2nd Avenue, headed towards Broadway, but not quite to Broadway, and that's when we saw the explosion.
So at that point, you thought, hey, this may have been some type of hoax, and then boom,
Right.
it went off.
Yeah, we thought it was over, and
Wow.
then it happened, and then we just pulled over, and of course, by that time, everything was blocked off. And
wow. Do you know, by the way,
we're in a hotel now.
Just to ask you this, do you know, were there other residents in the building, to your knowledge, that got out safely, perhaps, or?
Not in our building is a vacation rental
Okay.
business. We run that. Now, 2 of our family members are here. We have, and we got them out with us. They were in separate apartments, but they came with us. So the only 4 people in our building got out.
Had you not gotten out, do you think you would have been harmed?
Oh, definitely. You all been showing it on here. We're the building straight across from the explosion. The whole front of our building is blown up.
So you might have been killed. You might have been killed if not for
yeah.
that warning.
Yes, if not for the warning. If that person had just detonated that bomb with no warning and no gunshots, we would have been either very seriously injured or killed.
Let me ask
So
you this,
whoever
too.
did this-
As someone who's familiar, obviously, very familiar with 2nd Avenue, the fact that there would have been an RV parked there along that stretch on Christmas morning, not that unto itself, by itself, just sitting there, is not all that unusual, would it be? There were other vehicles parked on the road. That wouldn't have been suspicious by itself, would it?
No, it wouldn't have, and especially because it's the holidays and people know that parking's not being enforced. I would have assumed that was some family visiting somebody, and they
Gotcha.
just parked their RV there.
So it's your belief then that the early response from law enforcement, and obviously how you were able to get out of there, is because of combination, the gunshots, which really right now we can't really explain what those were all about, and then the warning from the vehicle.
Exactly. Yeah, the gunshots, and I mentioned this before, and I'm not sure of this, but the gunshots were so loud, there is a possibility. We've wondered now if they weren't a recording that came from the vehicle as well.
Interesting.
We don't know that, but as we've reflected back on it, because we heard it 3 times, it was exactly the same. You know, we wonder now if we weren't listening to a recording, but we don't know. But the gunshots definitely is what woke us up. And then, because the recording I don't think would have been loud enough to wake us up if we hadn't heard the gunshots.
Of course. By the way, do you have any inkling, and not something you would have necessarily noticed, but how long had the RV been there? Was it there earlier in the day? Do you think it just showed up overnight? Do you have any idea?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was not. I went out yesterday morning. I went to do a little last-minute shopping, and I don't remember seeing it then. I feel like I might have noticed because the street was pretty dead. You know, I mean, there were a few workman-type cars there, but I didn't notice it, no. But so I don't know.
And you would, and by the way,
I didn't take a picture of it or anything.
Sure. Well, why would you? Of course. And can you give me though, kind of a description of it? An older RV, a new one? Is this one of those where there was a camper attached to a pickup, or how would you describe it?
No, it was a single vehicle. It was definitely one vehicle.
Okay.
You know, like a bigger kind of RV. It wasn't all beat up looking, but it wasn't new. You know, it wasn't one of those slick-sided ones. It was more of an older one, but it was large. I mean, it was a large RV, and it was an older one.
Now, do you have any idea when you'll be allowed back into the area? And for now, I assume you're elsewhere.
Yeah, we're at a hotel now. Honestly, it's very difficult to tell. I don't know which building for sure is ours that you're all showing on the film, but I know all of our front windows are blown out, our apartment's blown out. I can't imagine that we'll be back in for days, and we didn't come out with anything but the clothes on our backs and pajamas.
And again, since you're very familiar with that area, we know there are restaurants and clubs there. Can you think of anything there in your mind, and I'm just asking you as a citizen who lives in that area, that would have been a potential target?
No, I can't. I mean, our thought was they must be after the AT&T building. That was our thought, just because, that's where they were parked, on that side of the street. They chose not, thank God, to go down to Broadway and destroy everything. So, I mean, our thought was they must have been aiming for the building that they parked close to.
Gotcha. Well, that's certainly something I know law enforcement will be going to look at, and that's just speculation right now. But listen, ma'am, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm so glad you were safe, and hopefully what you've shared here, along with authorities, will help in the investigation of this case. But thank you, ma'am, so much for your time.